everyone. I'm Renee, a retired educator turned wine bar conversationalist. This is Conversations Over Wine, where we reflect on life through lessons, love, and a life lived intentionally. Each week, we slow down, pour a glass, and talk about life's lessons, aging with intention, and what really matters as we grow older. I'm so glad you're here, whether it's your first time or you've listened to any of my episodes before. I'm glad you're here. So let's jump in. Well, I have taken a little bit of a hiatus from my podcast. I guess 3 or 4 weeks maybe. So I wanted to share a little bit about why and what's been going on. Basically, nothing bad. Just family responsibilities. If you're new here, I have 2 grown daughters. One is 27 and one is 21. And so I've just had different things going on with both of them. My youngest, my 21-year-old, she graduated at the end of May from Texas A&M, and I'm so very proud of her. She actually graduated in 3 years, so she busted her tail and did very well, graduated with honors, and super proud of her. But with that came just some different things that responsibilities we had as far as, getting her moved back to town where we live in the Fort Worth area. She had her big ring dunk going on, which is an Aggie tradition. She had graduation, lots of little things like that. And then, so we moved her back. And then Monday of this week, today is Friday, Monday, we moved her into her first apartment that she'll be living in by herself. So her first time living solo, which I think is just an amazing thing for everybody to do at some point in their life. So we moved her in on Monday, and she will be starting her career here in a couple of weeks. So lots been going on with that and getting her set up in this next stage of life. Also, as I have mentioned before, my oldest daughter is getting married this fall. And so we've had some things going on with that. We had dress shopping day, which was a success. I'm so excited. She found the dress of her dreams. And the minute she tried that particular dress on, myself and her bridesmaids, we all knew that was going to be the dress. We carried on and tried on more and actually went to another dress shop and circled back. And so she now has her wedding dress. We're in knee-deep planning her bridal shower, which will actually be at Salute Wine Bar where I work. So we're going to be doing that in July. Just lots of things with that. I've been helping them with ideas for their honeymoon. And so I've just been a busy mom, and also still, working at the wine bar and taking care of my own responsibilities. And also I think I just needed a little bit of a break, just time on my own, reflecting and kind of resetting. I love doing these podcasts, but I really like to do them when I have something that's really like heavy on my heart, something I've really been thinking about that I want to share my thoughts on. And so I guess my brain has just been elsewhere with family responsibilities and allowing myself to reset, that I really wasn't ready to dive into anything. But today I am. So I want to talk about kind of what's on my mind right now. And it's just, it ties in with something I have been working on my own personal journey. I am a single woman. I've been single for 4 years, divorced mom of 2 daughters. If you're new to this is just some background information about me. I retired from education last May, so I've been retired from my profession for a year, but I work part-time at a wine bar, which I absolutely love. It's a great retirement job. It, helps fund my life, but also it gives me the social interaction since I do live alone. And so I am always trying to do better, and always on a journey to be a better human. And for me, I don't ever want to stop doing that. I feel like we always have more room to grow. I have spent the last 4 years working on a lot of things, figuring out my part in my failed marriages, and also just things that I needed to address in me. And I hope we can all do that. I am not a therapist. I am not a nutritionist. I'm a retired educator and know a little bit about wine, but I have lived a pretty full life and have had a lot of life experiences that have taught me a lot, and I like to talk about those things. Again, I'm not a trained therapist or anything like that. I'm always just sharing my journey and what I have learned and what I've seen work in my own life, and sometimes in friends' lives as well. So let me circle back. I digress, but let's get into what's on my mind. So strangely enough, so I am 57, and the fact that this really did not occur to me until just, 3 or 4 months ago. I realized something that I was doing every morning when I woke up. And when I realized it, I was flabbergasted. I could not believe that I was doing this just every day by habit, not even realizing it because I'd been doing it for so long. I realized that when I was waking up in the mornings, I was having this negative self-talk to myself, like immediately, which is very odd because people that know me would tell you I am a very positive person. Like, I'm happy, I enjoy life, I embrace life, and I really am, and that's not a facade. Like, I really am a very happy person, and I'm a pretty dang confident person. So to discover that every morning I was shaming myself or looking for ways to shame myself or put myself down for something was shocking. So let me explain that a little more. I realized that when I was waking up, one of the first things that I was doing was I was thinking back over the previous day. Just innately, immediately, like thinking through what I ate the day before. And then as I was thinking about that, shaming myself for, when you ate this, you knew you shouldn't have been eating that. So I'm trying to explain like what this looked like in my head, the conversation going on in my head. If I was thinking about what I ate the day before, then it was, well, you knew you shouldn't have eaten that much, or look at you, you know that that's not healthy, you know that that's not what you should have eaten. So I was analyzing everything I put in my mouth the day before. That could be one negative conversation I could be having, not always that same one, but most days I realized I was thinking back to analyzing everything I put in my mouth the day before. Another thing that might be part of my morning negative self-talk the minute I woke up was if I had something to drink the day before. If I went out with friends, or even, evening alone at home, having a glass of wine and reading my book or whatever it may be. I was like, okay, what'd you drink yesterday? Did you drink yesterday? And how much did you drink? Well, that was too much to drink. Like, why did you drink? You didn't need to. Just things like that going on in my head. So it's almost like, and I was looking for something to shame myself about, even if there really wasn't anything. Even if I really did eat really healthy the day before, because most days I do. I'm a healthy eater. I take, what I put into my mouth pretty seriously, but without, being overboard about it. And then also I'm not an alcoholic or anything like that. I don't have to drink when I get up. I'm not out of control with it. I can take it or leave it, but I enjoy it. So if I want to have a glass of wine or two, I do that. Or if I'm out with friends, if I want to have a drink, I do. So it's not a problem for me, but I was looking for it to be. So that's just a couple of areas that I might start the negative self-talk. Or if I had a negative interaction with somebody, I'm replaying that conversation, or, going back through it. What was my part? Should I have said this instead of that? Just the spiraling that I realized was happening every morning. So you may think, well, how did you do that for all these years and not even realize it? Well, I don't know. I don't know when that started, but I know when it stopped, or when I became aware of it, which was several months ago when I started this practice. This is how I figured it out. I started this practice of gratitude every morning. I wanted to start my day off in a good, peaceful way, not even completely realizing the way I had been starting my day, but just thinking, I need to start my day with gratitude. So I was thinking about that, and I was also thinking about, some of the deep breathing that I do. I've learned to do over the last, since my divorce 4 years ago. It was pretty traumatic, and I found my heart racing a lot. So and I'd wake up in the middle of the night, kind of shoot up in the bed. It was a whole new experience for me from the trauma. And so I had learned, some breathing exercises. And so I've also incorporated that into my morning routine. Like, that's one of the first things I do is I regulate my nervous system. And then I was like, okay, you know what I'm going to do every single morning? I'm going to wake up and I'm going to think about at least 3 things that I am grateful for. Now, it could be 3 things from the day before. It could be just 3 things in general, just different things. So I started that practice, and I have talked about that in some other episodes. So that's when the realization came to me of what I actually had been doing instead. So when I started waking up and thinking, okay, I'm going to do my gratitude, I realized where my brain was going, which was, thinking about the food that I ate the day before, or thinking about my workout, or thinking about, did I have anything to drink? If I did I drink too much? Did I drink the wrong thing? What about that conversation? Was that my fault? Should I have handled that different? My brain was immediately spiraling. And that's when I caught it, is because I was implementing this new practice, but my brain wanted to go to the old one. And that's when I caught it. And it was so shocking, because I was doing it every day, but then carrying on with my life. And that is your self-talk. And thinking about that, that's why I'm bringing it to the table today. Because I wonder how many other people have these conversations with themselves, the self-talk that has become such a practice for them that maybe they're not even aware of it. And so, that got me to thinking really hard about that. And as soon as I realized it a few months ago, I was shocked and horrified. But then I began the process of undoing that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I had to replace that. That was not a healthy practice for me. And not that it doesn't sometimes still shoot in my brain first thing in the morning, but I'm working on rewiring my brain to form the new habit of the gratitude and the deep breathing and starting my day in a very peaceful, quiet way, rather than ruminating on things that I feel I should be criticizing myself for. That is a very destructive practice. And so I wanted to undo that. Research says it takes about 21 days to undo an old habit or to instill a new habit. And so that's a pretty decent timeline. So it can be done. It can be done. I am proof of that. I don't allow that to happen. Sometimes it'll start, but I stop it immediately and I replace that thought with my gratitude and what I'm thankful for. But I'll be honest, sometimes when a thought comes to me from my old habits, I will also address it sometimes. I will, like, let's say it's a food thought, then I might say to myself, you know what, maybe I did eat something that wasn't the healthiest at lunch. But that's okay, because it's more about what you do on the average as opposed to what you do at one particular meal. Now, if you continue to repeat that all the time, yeah, you're going to gain weight. And I've worked hard, over the last year to get my body in really good shape. I've worked hard on that. And so one meal or one day is not going to do that. So I reason with myself and I think it through. So sometimes I address the thought and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I ignore it. I recognize it for what it is and I carry on. But it really got me to thinking about how we talk to ourselves. Even if it's just that small piece of time, because I know I do not walk around all day long, putting myself down. I really do not do that. But even that morning start was destructive. And I recognized that. And I set my mind to rewire and undo that. And like I said, research says about 21 days. And so I have been doing it for more than 21 days. But like I said, it doesn't mean it never starts, but I know how to address it. I either immediately replace it or I just address it and say, you know what? Yes, this happened, but that's okay. That's normal, or, whatever the situation is. And I have caught myself, because I've become aware of that, every once in a while, like during the day, I might do something, say, oh my God, that, you're stupid, Renee, or something like that. And I address, now I hear that when I may do that, and I stop it and I replace it with a different thought. Not that we shouldn't be aware of things that we do, we shouldn't. I'm not saying that, but the way that we talk to ourselves is oh so important. And I remind myself, and I hope you will too if you find yourself doing that, I ask myself, would I talk to my daughters like this? Would I want my daughters to talk to themselves like that? And if the answer is no, then I should not be talking to myself like that. We should treat ourselves with the same respect that we treat others. And something else I've been thinking about with that, when it comes to the way that we talk to ourselves, is that, that sets a tone for our self-respect. And especially if you live by yourself, your voice is the one you predominantly hear, right? So I think it's even, if it can be, even more important if you live alone. Because when you live with others, you have other people, that could be saying some great, wonderful things to you, uplifting you. But when you're by yourself, yours is the only voice when you're at home. So it becomes, to me, even more important. So I've been looking into all of this and trying to figure out where all that comes from, the way that we talk to ourselves. And, from what I'm reading and learning about from different mental health care professionals, is that it all comes back from, it all originates from a core wound that we have. possibly from our childhood. Some type of situation or daily living situation or abuse or whatever it may be, some type of little trauma, big trauma, something like that has occurred in your life that creates these core wounds that we have. And sometimes those core wounds can cause things such as like what was happening to me every day. Interesting fact. Did you know that 95% of our behaviors and beliefs are not from our conscious mind, but from our subconscious? And that's where our core wounds sit. So we think that we are controlling our behaviors by telling ourselves, don't do this, or you should do that, or, I'm not going to eat any candy for a week, and you keep wondering why you still eat candy. That's because habits and our behaviors, all of that is subconscious. Most of it, 95% is what experts say. So we have to dive back into our subconscious and fix things there in order for your behaviors to actually change. So that was something I had to do in this particular situation, is figure out the core wound that was causing me to talk to myself that way every morning the minute I woke up. I had to dig deep, and it's painful to do that. But if you don't fix the core wound, if you don't find the originator, then you're just going to keep spinning your wheels. And what I'm learning is that's true about any of your behaviors that you're trying to change. Just telling yourself in your conscious mind, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change this, I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week, and then you wonder why a month in you quit going and why you don't have enough self-control and all of that. And what I'm learning is it's not the conscious. You have to go back into your subconscious and do that work. And you can do that from, learning from different healthcare professionals that are out there. I am not that person. But you have to go back and figure out the why. Then you will be able to change those behaviors. Pretty mind-blowing, right? I could probably fall down into that rabbit hole for another 20 minutes, but I won't. That is, just diving into the whole thing about the subconscious and the conscious mind is super interesting to me. And maybe when I learn even more about it that I could share, then maybe I'll have a whole other, episode about that. But I just wanted to share what I have recently learned about the importance of how I talk to myself, even in those just little moments. And so I hope that maybe something from this, you can take something from it or learn something from it. I open myself up and am very vulnerable on here sometimes with my life, and which can be a little scary, but I want to share things that I hope can help others. And anytime I find something super interesting, intriguing, or maybe even helpful, I like to share that. Like I said, maybe we'll dive into the subconscious and conscious mind and all that as I learn more. But again, I hope there's something you can take away from this today. And I just want to remind you that the way that we talk to ourselves is so very important. And a good starting point could be when you say a particular thing to yourself is maybe just ask yourself, would I talk to my friend like this? Would I talk to my spouse like this? Would I talk to, my child like this? Would I want them to talk to themselves like this? And if the answer is no, then that's probably a pretty good indication that you should not be talking to yourself like that. So then you got to figure out that core wound, and you have to address that, and then you have to spend, the next 3 to 4 weeks consistently every single day forming that new habit and getting rid of that old habit. So anyway, that's just Renee's thoughts for the day. If you enjoyed today's episode, if you don't mind taking a few minutes to like, comment, and download my podcast, I would appreciate that. And if you know one person or more that you think would enjoy this episode, please share it with them. That would mean a lot to me. And thank you, as always, for joining me as we sipped, savored, and reflected on this beautiful life that we've been given. And until next time, cheers.